Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jack the Lad podcast. On today's episode, we've got on Hedwig Macbutterfly. Welcome.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Hedwig Macbutterfly, aka Kamila Dzingielewska, and I'm fashion history enthusiast, seamstress, model, and I'm supporting actor.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today. I came across you on Instagram, as I do many of my guests, and your video, I think the video was a sort of a flash through a few different periods. I think it might have even been like the year in review, basically. But yeah, it just caught me because of your attire to start with. And then obviously all the sort of old-fashioned ornaments and stuff that you've got around your house. So, when did it all begin?
I think that all began in my family house, as my father was always collecting antiques. I was always interested in history, and now my parents are running their own museum. And my brother is an archaeologist, so I think it's run in the blood. The love for history, for everything old, for antiques. And now I'm also collecting antiques. And as you can see here, I created an Edwardian inspired parlor in my house in one of the rooms. So the rest of the house is modern, but this one room is mine. And I've got my antiques in here. I've got my collections, my books. And this is a place where I film most of my videos.
Yeah. So, do you have a significant other, a partner?
Yeah.
How did that all get brought up then? How did you say, like, I want a room as for me?
Well, that was my dream for the long time. And before we lived in a really small flat, so there was no option. So now when we moved here, there was a couple of rooms. So I was like, listen, we can split the house in half. So he got the loft and he got his music and photography gear there. And I've got my room here. So that was very fair.
So when did you start, like, your collection? What was the first sort of piece that you purchased?
Because I knew that at some point I would like to create a room like this. I was looking for the pieces long before. I don't know. I don't really remember. that happened a couple of years ago. It started all a couple of years ago. And I was just collecting the small pieces as we didn't have much space back then. And then it came to, bigger and bigger pieces that in the end of living in the other flat, I had a couple of, bigger pieces of furniture ready to move in here.
Why Edwardian?
Well, I was trying different fashions before. So most people, when they are starting wearing vintage, they start from pin-up, which is 40s and 50s. And that was pretty similar for me. So I started from 40s fashion, and then I did more and more research. I was looking on the fashion plates. I made a couple 18th century gowns. I made a couple Regency gowns, and I keep making them just because I'm working in the Georgian House, which is the museum in Edinburgh. And at some point, I was just saving the photos or fashion plates or the museum examples from the Edwardian era, and I think this sort of fashion speaks to me the most.
All right.
The silhouettes, I think, which are very. I think of them that they're very elegant. So Edwardian era started with sort of hourglass shape figure, hourglass shape silhouette, but not the one we know from the 50s. But the base is the same. So sort of you need to have bigger bosom, bigger bum, and really, really tiny waist. later on, in the later Edwardian era, they would slightly change into the S-shape silhouette, but still the base was the same, to have a little bit more of the body up and down and really tiny waist. And this is actually easy to achieve without changing your own body, because you can use the breast pads, you can use the hips pads, you can use the bum pads to make this illusion of small and really, really small, tiny waist. Not really changing your own body, you do it just using clothes.
So the just going back to at the start of that, you were talking about you made an 18th century gown.
Yes, 18th century.
How do you 18th century?
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you go about doing that? Is there drawings? Is there like how would you even begin to start that?
So there's lots of ways to start, but I started with American Duchess Guide to 18th Century Dressmaking. There was a book made by American Duchess Company, and I got it for Christmas just before the pandemic. And in the beginning of 2020, I started sewing, hand sewing, because I didn't have a sewing machine back then. And instead of doing something very easy, starting from the basics, I just went straight through. And I was creating back then the 1780s Italian gown. And through the course of the first lockdown, I made a couple of the gowns from the book, which are very complicated, but obviously I had all the time in the world. So this is how I started. I just went straight through complicated things.
So how long does a gown like that take to make?
It depends, obviously, how elaborate you want it to be. Because I had lots of time, so I would say about a month or two. Depends on style, depends how many trims you would add.
And a month or two? That seems quite quick, actually. I thought it would take longer. What sort of hours a day would that be?
Well, because I was in lockdown, then I would just sit and do my sewing. And my dresses were, I would say, less elaborate. I didn't embroider them, or not the first ones. So that's why it's not that much time. The people who do this professionally and they need the historical accuracy, they would obviously spend much more.
So while you're doing all of your sort of your Edwardian stuff, how what does your partner get up to while this is all happening? Does he get involved with it at all?
Excuse me?
Does he get involved with it at all? Does he dress in vintage clothing at all, or?
No, he dressed once for the walk, but he's not into the vintage fashion or historical fashion. He supports my passion, and he's my photographer. So the most photos you would see on my Instagram are made by him. And he's very supportive, but he's not on the, dressing up side. He's got his own hobbies and his own fashion. He's a guitarist and he's a photographer. So we would spend time together. I would sew or do something costumey related, and he'd edit the photos or play some music in the meantime.
When you're looking around for, as you can see in the background, for those who's listening, there's a chair and sofa. How long does it take you to sort of purchase them? Like find that sort of stuff? I'm assuming online or in charity shops.
So most of the stuff I've got in my shop, in my parlor, I found them on Facebook Market or the auction houses. Some from charity shops, but not that many. And the flea markets, car boot sales. So this is one of our hobbies, to go to check all charity shops in a town every Saturday and Sunday, flea markets or cab sales here in Edinburgh. And I feel like it's very easy here to find antiques and find them cheap.
So go
on. I think it took me around 2 years to collect all the stuff. And then when we moved here in December, it took me a couple of months to get everything ready to paint and collect pieces I was missing.
While you've obviously been on this journey, is it all Edwardian stuff that you predominantly?
No, it's mostly inspired or in Edwardian style.
Right. Okay.
The sofa you see behind me is Edwardian, but for example, the chair in here is not, but it's inspired.
Right. Okay. With you. So, what's the sort of something from the Edwardian time that you've found out about, or there's something, something that you've purchased or whatever that sort of really stood out to you, like you didn't know about that part of the Edwardian history, or whatever it was?
Well, I think the most striking is the fact that the Edwardian era is not that far from our modern days, and they really had the things we had. So they had electricity, they had running water, they had bathrooms, they had toilets, they had telephone, they had cars, or the cars were starting to be popular, and the most rich people would have them. And I think this is very common for people to do not know that, especially I can see that in my comment section where people just assume that was in 1902 or 1907. So, oh my God, they didn't wash themselves. They lived like, in the wild. Whereas they had these things, and these were very popular, and almost everyone had electricity in the end of Edwardian era. And when you don't think about that, and when you are not into the history that much, you might think, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, they didn't have any of this comfort that we got, but they had.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, with you living a sort of Edwardian inspired life, or at least part of it, if you could, would you go back to that time?
No, never. Well, I will go for short visits just to see how it was, but never change my life from the modern times to the Edwardian times. And I think this is, I think that most people who do this, who do some costuming or who wear vintage clothing, they would not really want to travel back in time and stay there, because I can do stuff I do now just because I live in a modern world. I have a freedom to do those things, to wear, well, for some people, costumes. I have a freedom to, purchase sort of some sort of stuff. I can go to any restaurant alone. These are things that you would not have in Edwardian era. A woman in the beginning didn't have right to vote. So these are not the things I would like to go to and stay there. So I really appreciate being in 2023, and I made my own trips into the past.
Yeah. I suppose I hadn't sort of thought about it from that perspective, to be honest. So yeah, how many sort of people how do you go about, like, when you've got your photo shoots, or like when you're meeting up? I've seen a few. I'm not sure. Like, how does it work? Is there a community that a Facebook page, or like when the events are due and stuff like that? Like, how does that all work?
When I lived in Krakow, there was a big community of people who or wear vintage, or into historical costuming, or they do all sorts of reenactment. And then I moved to Edinburgh. I didn't know anyone, so it was a little bit hard in the beginning to get to know people and to get to know your people. So I just sort of went to the vintage shop and I said to the owner, I don't know anyone here. Please take me. Please invite me to some events or whatever. Just introduce me to some people. I would like to meet somebody who do the same things. And almost 4 years later, we are now best friends, and we do all sort of dressing up events. Last year, actually 2 years ago, we started forming the group, which is called Antique Society of Edinburgh. And we organize all sorts of costuming and dressing up events, like antique walks, or we had Regency picnic or Edwardian picnic. And so we sort of always have a theme or the dress code, and we would go to visit some museum or to see some exhibition, and then obviously we all be dressed up and then spend time together like that.
How many is there of you within this the Antiques Society of Edinburgh?
Around 10, 12 people.
Okay. When you're transiting from, location to location or walking or, whatever it is, you must get, people looking and, turning and whatnot. Have you ever experienced any sort of negative comments from people?
No, almost never.
That's good.
Yeah. People are very nice, and people are obviously curious what we are doing, what sort of event is this. And even if I'm walking somewhere alone and I'm wearing, for example, Edwardian attire, or I'm wearing Regency dress, people would ask where I'm going. Is there something going on? Is there any sort of event? And then I will tell them, well, no, this is how I dress, and they are always very nice and very pleasant. Yeah. When we are the bigger group and we've got, picnic or we've got some spread, then it makes more sense for people because they see that this is actually something. Yeah. It's not just one crazy lady. So I feel like in a group we feel safer.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that goes without saying. I think that's across the board. So you wear this Edwardian outfits all the time?
Well, I wear fashion from 1900s to 1940s, sometimes 50s, sometimes 70s, but that's as far as I go.
So it's
the mix.
But it's never you don't wear anything from this sort of generation.
I do wear some modern clothes from time to time, and sometimes I need to wear modern clothes when I'm working. So obviously, yes, I still got some modern clothes in my wardrobe, but just because I need to have them.
But other than that, like if you had the choice, you would wear sort of old-fashioned clothing.
Yeah.
All right. So so just going through the sort of selections of clothing. Obviously nowadays we have like jogging bottoms, for example, and like lounge wear where you just sort of dossing at home. What would you wear as if you're just sort of chilling out, so to speak?
So in Edwardian era and in Edwardian fashion, there would be dressing gowns or the tea dresses, which were less strict dresses, which you will put on yourself. You don't have to wear the corset underneath, especially if you are in dressing gown, which looks more elaborate and more elegant than our dressing gowns or the dressing gowns we got in, when we go out the shower. But you still can be comfortable, obviously. And you can be comfortable in corsets, which might be shocking for some people.
Yeah, that would seem like it, really brings you in.
I think that's some sort of urban legend.
Oh, really?
And I think it's also confirmed by actresses in a period dramas. They're always complaining, but it's mostly because these corsets are not made for them, and the corset, to be comfortable, need to be made made to measure for you, tailored for you, and seasoned. So I'm making my own corsets. So obviously my corsets would be always more comfortable than the corsets I would wear on a movie set, where I would just get, oh, this is your size, here you go. And you don't have to tight yourself to the point when you can breathe. As I said before, to achieve certain silhouettes, you can kind of cheat. You will add more layers in certain areas, and you will not have any layers on the waist. So obviously you will have bigger body here and smaller there. So yeah, it's not that uncomfortable as people might think.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that. So you mentioned there about obviously having it fitted to you and seasoned. What does seasoned just mean? Worn in?
Yes. So you need to wear the corset for some time to know if it's really great fit. Obviously, you do all sorts of stuff during the day. You would eat, you would drink. So obviously the belly might get bigger, and you need to kind of check if you're going to be comfortable throughout the day.
So for the people just listening, obviously in the background it's all very sort of Edwardian. There's lots of things on the walls and whatnot, and obviously what you're dressed in and how you've done your hair and all the rest of it. How long does it take you to sort of achieve this look?
If it's a look like this, just not the ball look or evening attire, I would say 15 minutes.
Oh, really? Is this like a day-to-day outfit?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So obviously I have more layers than I will have in a modern clothes, where I would have my underwear and maybe t-shirt and something on top. Because I've got a shift, I've got a corset, I've got a pair of split drawers, and I've got a petticoat, and I've got a corset cover. But at some point, it's just naturally. So you just put the stuff like clothes. Because if you wear things like that daily, or a couple times a week, or a couple times a month, it's just like your clothes. It doesn't feel like a costume anymore.
What sort of sorry. What was the reason for the move from Krakow to Edinburgh?
Oh, I had this urge to change something. And then I started watching, please don't laugh, I started watching Outlander.
Okay, I wouldn't laugh at that.
I just thought, oh, Scotland is so nice. We were thinking about UK before, and maybe moving to London or somewhere south, because we had some friends there. But then I watched Outlander, and I start digging more into the Scotland, in the Scottish history, and in how the life is here. And I just thought, that would be great. And there's lots of Polish people here in Edinburgh and throughout the Scotland. And I think that Scottish and Polish people like each other very much, so that's always easy to feel welcome.
Yeah. What was it like, the move, obviously moving from country to country?
A little bit crazy, because I never been in UK before.
So you didn't visit Scotland before coming?
No.
That's that's
So
extraordinary.
I moved here in June, and my fiance couldn't move with me because he had some gigs planned for summer. So I moved alone. I had one big suitcase, and I had a room already rented. So it was a little bit crazy, yes. So it doesn't feel like that back then. it was just, I don't know, some sort of, it makes sense for me back then that I was doing those stuff. But now when I'm coming back in my memory, that was crazy. I just arrived in random Tuesday with one suitcase and moved the country and moved.
Yeah, I mean, as simple as that. But it must have been so daunting, especially obviously doing it on your own. What's something that what's something that you see in Scotland, or something that happens in Scotland that didn't happen before? Like, what surprised you the most about Scotland?
I think how nice people are, and maybe how they let you be yourself. I think that's the big difference between Poland and Scotland, or maybe UK. The people would judge you less. So I think there is a less. It's not even there's a less negative, opinions about wearing the costumes, but people just don't care what you do or what you wear. They just let you be, and I think that's a big difference, and that helps me a lot. That helps me be myself and wear whatever I want, because I know that people don't care.
Did that ever change sort of what you would wear and stuff when you were back in Poland?
Yes. I think I would be scared more to wear things I wear, or like wear those stuff on daily basis, or when I go somewhere alone. I would feel judged.
See that? Yeah, I've never thought about that. Again, I've never lived outside of the UK. I've spent a few months abroad when I was in the military and stuff like that. But the majority of the time, it is within the UK. But I wouldn't have said that we. I don't know. I've never really thought about it, actually. But it's like a tolerance and stuff, and not saying stuff. I think that the UK is quite bad for that. I think they would sort of call and people look. But then thinking about it, when I do see someone that is wearing something outrageous, other than looks, people don't really tend to say anything. I mean, I'm still sort of getting over the fact that you just sort of rocked up at in Scotland in Edinburgh without even visiting before. I mean, that in itself is just wild, absolutely wild. Obviously, you've been talking about, how sort of nice, I suppose, people in Scotland are, which I concur. That I've been to Scotland quite a few times, and everyone's always been sort of very friendly. I mean, for me as an Englishman, probably not welcomed as much as you. But my stepdad is Scottish, so yeah, sort of got sort of semi ties to it. But you've said obviously then about obviously how much sort of more tolerant people are. And when obviously I sent you the thing across, you said about finding yourself. Do you want to go into that a bit more?
Yeah, of course. I think the clothes are a very important part of our life, and important for expressing ourselves. And I think that I feel very confident now, where I'm wearing the sort of Edwardian styles or vintage styles, and I don't feel very confident when I wear modern clothes or modern styles, which is very funny. And I think the fashion is very important, and the fashion is sort of freedom, and lets you express yourself. And I think this is also very important for like young people who are trying to fit in. And obviously, one of the easiest ways to fit in is to wear what other people wear, or what the people in school are wearing. And you need to have courage to, wear something else, and wear different styles than what is now trendy. And I think being away from Poland, and being in a country nobody really knows me. Maybe that helped me. That I just started be myself because I knew that these people don't know me, so they're not gonna judge me, and I am free to do and wear whatever I want.
When you said there about obviously coming from Poland and obviously them not judging you, I think you starting off, you know, being as you are, wearing Edwardian clothing and all the rest, that's all they'll know you for. So I would imagine at the beginning they'll be like, "Oh, Hedwig's she's a bit off." But then, you know, as they get to know you and as they see you around all the time, they're just, oh, that's just, you know, that's what Hedwig does. And do you know what I mean? So it's like you said, it is a lot easier to almost reinvent yourself, I suppose. Even though you're doing what, you know, does make you happy, and it is what exactly, you know, how you want to be and how you want to live your life. You are almost creating a new version of yourself that is completely wrapped up in, you know, this Edwardian feel and fashion and all the rest of it, straight off the cusp and off the bat, so that, you know, the new people in your life, that's the only experience they have of you, which, yeah, no doubt would have helped. So just talking, obviously, through, we've spoke a bit about obviously fashion and stuff. Where do you see sort of fashion these days going? Because some of it is wild.
Well, it's interesting, and I think the fashion is the constant change and a constant you know, in evolving process. So, and it never stops. And I think the things now we think they're crazy. The same was happening before. The same was happening in the past, when, for example, in the beginning of 1910s or 1920s, sorts of skirts were going up, up, and up. Obviously, that was shocking for, you know, the older people. And I think the same is happening now. You know, when I was a teenager, it was very trendy to have your belly out, you know, with very short top and with a low waist jeans, and I was shocking for everyone, and my grandma was always like, oh my god, try to cover yourself. and that was probably 15 years ago, and now the crop tops and, you know, naked belly is not shocking for everyone, because this just sort of went into the fashion, and now it's kind of normal. And I think this is what is happening with fashion all the time from the very beginning. Like, there is a certain fashion, and then there's something new and shocking, and it's harder for other people to accept that. But at some point, it goes in, and in 10, 15 years, everyone's going to be like that, or they're going to wear those styles.
It becomes the norm. So I ask every guest this at the end of the episode, and I've had a very, you know, a wide variety of answers and responses to this. What advice would you give to someone who is either trying to get into your field and just doesn't, you know, feels a bit out of place or whatever like that, and then an advice in general for people?
To get to do stuff like this, or costuming or vintage, I would say you don't have to own, you know, proper garments. You don't have to own corset. You don't have to do or sew your stuff to start. Just start doing this today. You know, start with something small. Buy something, for example, Edwardian inspired, by the white blouse and long skirt. If you want doing something like that, if you feel like this is your style, just start doing it and don't wait. Because I wasted so many years just waiting, and then be scared of that I'm not going to be ready, or I don't have proper undergarments, or I don't have proper skills because I couldn't really sew before. And I'm still in a process of learning, and now I don't have a problem with that. I feel like I will learn along the way, and doing your own costumes is sort of a never-ending process of learning. And the other stuff, wear whatever you want. Don't care what people say, because this is very important for you to feel comfortable with stuff you're wearing, that can boost your confidence, and really helps you feel better and feels yourself, which is very important to feel like yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more.
Oh, maybe the other things. I know there's lots of people always complaining that they would love to do things like that, or wear things like that, or attend events like that, but there are no events like that in their cities, or they don't know people like that. And it's very easy now. Just reach out. Just, send this message on Instagram. Just do what I did. Just go to the shop, this vintage shop, and say, hey, please invite me. Or like, guide me. I don't know anyone here and I need help. And most of the cases, people will help you, invite you, and, it's easy. It's just you need to do the first steps, and that might be scary, but this is the way to get to the things you want.
100%. Yeah, definitely. Would you like to give everyone your social media tags so they can get in touch with you if they do want to?
So my Instagram handle is Hedwig.Macbutterfly, and that's my main social media page. I'm trying on TikTok, but I think I'm too old.
I'll try on TikTok as well, but yeah, it's a minefield.
It's different than Instagram, so I'm confused.
Yeah, definitely.
I have my own YouTube channel, although I don't have any new videos. I might come back to recording videos. It's Hedwig Macbutterfly Sewing Adventures. So if someone wants to give me subscribe and wait.
You should put the reels that you do on Instagram onto YouTube Shorts.
Oh, I should do that. Yeah.
That would, yeah. Now, because YouTube do. I mean, I say it like I do it. I'm always forgetting to do it, but
it seems like every page and every media had their own version of TikToks.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they've all jumped on board with it. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today, Hedwig. It has been very much a schools in session. I've learned a hell of a lot because I didn't know anything about the time period at all, really. I wish you all the best for the future. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
No, anytime. It was brilliant. Well, thank you for listening, everybody.